Nowhere else in such a constellation. From Commando Courageous, a Boer's Diary, by Roland William Schikkerling. We next day arrived at Balmoral, passing between Lindeskew's house and garden to camp at the station. The following day we trekked a few miles northward, and the men of our field cornetcy camped at Stone's farm in a peach orchard adjoining a stream of water. At this place we were able to have some rest and to restore a little order. Nearly all of Corporal Lessing's men, for convenience, messed together. The members of the mess now were Poplap van Wyk, our field cornet, Bill, his brother, Jan Devenaar, Baan and George Greef, Rolf Piet and Andries Vermeulen, Jack and Sydney Rocha, Ben Coetzee, George Aldridge, Steyn, Ben Fouchier, Philip Fouchier, Napoleon, that is myself, and one or two others. A son of Frans Pienaar, who had been taken prisoner earlier in the war, here returned to us. He had been sent to Ceylon, whence one night, with one or two companions, he escaped and, with a knife in his mouth, swam through shark-infested waters to a Russian ship far out at sea. They were carried to Russia, and thereafter, by stages, made their long way back to us. We had, standing near us, a small body of Irishmen and Irish Americans. They were lively boys, and the finest of company. This party adapted themselves to our conditions sooner and more easily than any of the foreigners with us. Where the Germans and the Hollander, nearer to us in blood perhaps, felt and looked out of place, you could not pick Patrick out of a herd of the wildest Boers. There were field cornets bearing the names of Kelly and O'Brien. This little band of men could curse like heretics, and their profanity was, at times, quite picturesque. Uncle Toby's troops in Flanders could not have done better. Of the men of our mess, many were new and not well known to me. But of those who had been companions in the Natal days, us few, us happy few, us band of brothers, I must give more particular introduction. Baan Greef, the rarest of devils, was a man of headstrong courage, passionate and eager. He would never think of halting at any danger. He brimmed over to a fault with enthusiasm and energy. He was restive as a colt and kind-hearted as a child. He gave away most of his loot and rations and did considerably more than his share of duty. He was ever abroad seeking necessaries for the mess. He volunteered for every dangerous job and would have fetched the devil himself out of hell. He was in every fight and in the thickest part, but was far too reckless and of too little judgment ever to be placed in command. Whenever any of our mess got into a dispute, Baan would push forward and take over the quarrel. At times he was as full of humours as the sea. He had auburn hair, and there was much of the ancient Spaniard in him. At the same time, he could have been an Irishman. To his horse he was more attentive than any Bedouin. George, his brother, was less spirited and more balanced, yet no less brave when occasion called. He was not so forward and impulsive. Useful in camp or reliable in field, he was much less concerned for his horse than Baan. Jack Rosher, when in action, would do his share, but was never keen for strife. He was very fond of riding about and visiting the farms lying in and about our way, and always brought news, and often foodstuffs. He disliked cooking and camp duties. Having no belief in the dignity of labour, he would, in order to avoid work, go to 10 times the trouble the work involved. He was, however, a good, easygoing, cheerful, and comforting companion. Although thoughtful for his horse, he never went to great pains on its account. Sidney, his brother, a fellow by the hand of nature framed to be a farmer, had no relish for battle, but was a genius at domestic administration, very provident and, in a degree, resourceful. Always anticipating the wants of the larder, he was forever repairing the harness and saddles, cutting rimpies and voorslags, whiplashes, making whips and so forth. An excellent and careful man, to whom to entrust the team and the wagon, and almost too considerate of his horse, which seemed to be a chronic invalid. The brothers Vermeulen could be daunted by nothing, yet Piet, for calm, daring, and presence of mind in any perilous extremity, for enthusiasm and relish for battle and danger, and for the soldierly qualities, without much flourish, had few parallels in the Boer ranks. He was only less headstrong than Baan, and was, like Baan, too daring to be placed in command. He had the physical strength and endurance to engage in the more hazardous enterprises. The other brothers, Rolf and Andries, were also of irreproachable bravery and had a rare appetite for combat. None of the brothers was fond of camp duties, nor particularly careful of his horse. Piet usually lagged behind in a retreat for pot shots. I've seen him unhorse a man at 1,800 yards. Jan Devenaar possessed all the soldierly and daring qualities of Piet, but was a shade less aggressive and was made more useful and practical in camp and during the short intervals of peace. Of a very agreeable and engaging disposition, he was always among the first to busy himself in making a fire, bringing water, or erecting a shelter for the mess when a halt was called. A most reliable man for an officer to lean upon during a battle, either for carrying a dispatch or for heading a few volunteers in a hurried extremity. Most careful of his horse, he was in every sense an ideal soldier. The other members, though brave, some to foolhardiness, had either no outstanding qualities that render description easy, or I did not know them well enough at this stage to venture upon it. Few of them seemed cut out for officers. In dealing with us, the general usually bridged over the intervening officers and gave his orders direct, one by one, stating midst many blushes on our part, that our little band were his best and bravest men. We were the 10th Legion, and much important work was entrusted to us. There were many fine fellows in the Commando, but nowhere else in such a constellation.